Welcome back, everybody, to the GoGamecocks.com college football preview show. Today, 5 bold predictions, or maybe not so bold. We'll see if you think they're bold or not, for the South Carolina football team for 2014. The first one, the answer to this question: will Dylan Thompson start? We know he'll start. Will he finish the year as the starting quarterback? You go first.
That's a tough question, Josh. I mean, we all know he's going to be out there when Texas A&M comes down, barring an injury, that kind of thing. But it's really going to be difficult to see if they just continue to say, you're the senior, you know the offense the best, go on out there and start every game. I mean, if he starts, not playing very well, do they continue to run him out there? I mean, does it depend if the team wins or not? Does it depend if you're just not ready for your backups? I think that he will end up starting the final game of the year as starting QB. In between is going to be the question. I think that there will be at least 2 games this year where they're going to roll in Connor Mitch, or they're going to start in a Wildcat package, which technically Dylan Thompson wouldn't start, even though he comes in and plays most of the game. Just because I think that he'll get knocked around a little bit. He'll stand back there and try to complete the pass, something that Connor Shaw didn't do, and some defensive end is going to pop him pretty good. I think that he'll have a couple of minor knocks, but he'll end up starting the majority of the games. There'll be at least 2 games where he does not start as QB, however.
I think he starts them all. I think that he's got all the tools, he's got all the experience, he's got that offensive line, he's got Mike Davis, he's got a lot of reasons to believe he'll have some success. My caveat is interceptions. It's something he's got to work on. He has taken too many chances in the past. He's worked very hard on it. If he's corrected it, they're going to be in great shape. If he hasn't, there are just only so many interceptions Steve Spurrier can watch. And Connor Mitch, although I'm not sure he's ready, and they've talked about he's probably not quite ready, if Dylan Thompson throws too many interceptions, Connor Mitch is just going to have to find out if he's ready, because Steve Spurrier is going to put him in there. I think Dylan makes it from start to finish. I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman Trophy, but I think he's this team's starting quarterback. Now, speaking of the Heisman Trophy, second prediction: will Mike Davis get enough touches to be in the Heisman race by the end of the year? I'll go here. My answer is no. It's not as much a Mike Davis thing as it is the fact that the Heisman Trophy is no longer a running back award. It's almost exclusively a quarterback thing. Since 1999, one running back, Mark Ingram in 2009, has won the Heisman Trophy. The days of Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker and whoever Nebraska was rolling out there,
Mike Rozier,
winning the Heisman Trophy are kind of over, or at least we're out of that cycle. It's a QB game. It's a QB award. Running backs, the bar is so high for what they have to do. They have to have so many of those what you call Heisman moments. They have to get so many touches. And I think that Mike is going to get rotated in for a lot to keep him healthy. I just don't see him as the type of guy who's going to be on those lists.
It's one of those things, I agree with you, Josh. I don't think Mike Davis will get enough touches to be a Heisman contender. I think he'll have a great season, but the fact is that they don't have to hand him the ball like they did to Marcus Lattimore 35 to 40 times a game. Everett Sands has said, it's like, no, I don't want to do that, because you're just going to wear a back down. Running back shelf life is extremely short. Yes. We've all seen that numerous times, and they're going to try to protect Mike Davis not only for this year but for the next level. They've got the backups, so they don't have to lean on Mike Davis exclusively. You have Brandon Wild, Sean Carson, David Williams, and if you really want to keep rushing the ball, you've got Pharaoh Cooper or maybe a Brendan Nosovich to come in at Wildcat quarterback. I think Mike Davis has another season, probably even a 1,000-yard season, but he will not be out there even in the top 10 of Heisman candidates once that list is released.
Number 3, defensive line and secondary. Kind of along the same lines as the Dylan Thompson question. Will the defensive line and secondary have the same starters from start to finish? Your turn.
Absolutely not. There's just too much talent to get onto the field. There's too many unanswered questions, especially in those 2 positions on defensive line and secondary. We've already, talked about in our defensive preview how that secondary is going to have to rotate between these freshman cornerbacks, between Bryson Williams moving from safety to corner. If, the safeties in Chaz Elder or TJ Gurley or what have you don't work out, they're not going to leave those guys on the field. They've got to get some production from those spots. Defensive line, same thing. And just changes from do you start in a 3-4, do you start in a 4-3, I think those guys are going to have to be rotating out too. The Dixon brothers, Darius English, David Johnson, Cedric Cooper, Phillip Dukes, Dion Green, all those guys have been looking very good. They're going to want to get them all reps and find out who their best players are. Just saying, the lineups that will start the game against Texas A&M on August 28th will definitely not be the same lineups that come in to Death Valley at Clemson.
I agree with you. I think this is an easy one. The secondary, you mentioned those guys and all the guys you've got. They are evaluating those young guys, but you don't really know until you put them in a game how they're going to react. So you might as well roll several of them in there, give them a shot, and see how they do. And the fact that they've got so much flexibility just makes it very unlikely that they start the same group from start to finish. And defensive line, beyond the fact that it's just such a physical position and you're bound to lose somebody, I think you're right. I think that Dion Green is a guy, and not to mention the 3-4, you're going back and forth there, so guys are moving around. Just think there's so many question marks. It's not smart to think they're going to go from start to finish. Maybe they do, but I don't think so. Going into the prediction number 4, we're each going to name a breakout player for 2014. For me, it's David Williams, the freshman running back who South Carolina fans have been excited about for 2 years now. Redshirted as a true freshman, injured earlier in camp, missed a few days, but got a lot of work in the second scrimmage of the year, which is a clear indication to me that they want him to get in that rotation. There are carries to be had behind Mike Davis. He's a speed guy. I think he's a guy who could make an impact and not necessarily need a ton of carries to do it.
Among other choices of this team, and there are a lot of choices, Josh, I'm going to have to go with Darius English. I'm not going to say that he's going to replace Jadeveon Clowney. Let's just throw that comparison right out the window. But Darius English is going to get his chance to start because he's waited, he's earned it, and he deserves it. He's got a 7-foot wingspan. He's got the speed. He's got the height. He now has the bulk to go along with it, getting up to 250 pounds, and he seems to be maintaining that. I think he's going to be the guy, whether they go 3-4 or 4-3, that will be that premier pass rusher that they have depended on so much over these past few years. A lot of choices for breakout player, but Darius English is definitely mine.
Last prediction. Biggest shoes to fill. I'm going to give you the easy one. You go first.
Well, how do you not start at quarterback?
That's right.
Connor Shaw didn't lose a game at home at South Carolina. All-time winningest quarterback that the program has ever had. And if there was a 3rd and 8 situation where South Carolina had to get a first down, everybody in that stadium knew that number 14 was going to pick it up. So you got to go with Dylan Thompson. He's got the biggest shoes to fill. Now, he's not going to be the same type of player that Connor Shaw was, and I don't think that anybody could be. Dylan can run. He's mobile. He's got a great arm, and I think he's going to make very good decisions. But he's going to have to show that it's not just about running to pick up the first down like Shaw did so well. It's about making smart decisions. It's about finding some way to win when the chips are down. And I think he can do that, but he's definitely got the biggest responsibility to fill from what they lost last year.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think there's any question. But just for the sake of argument, I'll take some different guys. I'm going to go a little off the order here. I'm going to say the Dixon brothers because, it's not exactly the same positions. But when you look at junior, a tackle, regular Dixon 44, as they call him, an end, you're replacing an end in Jadeveon Clowney and a tackle in Kelsey Quarles, who are all Americans. So now you've got these two half-brothers, legacy guys. It's a very SEC story. Your dad was a star here. Now you're half brothers and you're playing beside him. It's a really good story. But they've got a lot of pressure. I think that the coaches like both of them. We'll see if they can step up and be the type of guys, like you say, you don't replace Jadeveon Clowney, but can you serviceably fill that position? I think the Dixon brothers could prove a lot this year. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll talk about the schedule in depth, and it's a front-loaded schedule. See you tomorrow.